Go ahead and get started. Good morning. We're going to go ahead and get started, and to Leslie Ricard, I believe, who is on Zoom, or is it on our online? I apologize that we got a late start, but it was drizzling and it slowed some people down. So hopefully more will be joining us. So this is the first time in the 2 years that I've been serving as mayor that we're doing something with EDC, which is our Economic Development Commission. And I wanted to just thank them for joining us. This is Dawn Doty, who is the City of Olivet Senior Planner, and she serves as the staff liaison to EDC. And Rod Pattershuk, who is the EDC chairperson of the commission. So we're going to just jump right in, and we'll do a Q&A at the end. And so I want to begin by thanking the staff of Five Oaks for providing such delicious donuts, and Patrick McGee for setting us up online. So their hospitality is great, and if you haven't been to Five Oaks, stay and take a tour. And I believe everyone here has been to Five Oaks before, but someone just popped in to say they were going to work out and how great it is. So we're really proud of it here. So Dawn joined the City of Olivet as a senior planner in May of 2021, where she leads the planning department's geospatial and database administration and supports planning and community development Director Carlos Trejo in Olivet's planning and community development, economic development, and zoning administration. Dawn and her husband Brian have been Olivet residents for more than 12 years, and Dawn and family frequently visit Worsham Park. And I'm going to have Dawn expand in a little bit about her love for economic development and what she does, because she's very passionate about her job. And Rod Pattershuk has been a resident of Olivet for just over 30 years. He's originally from Canada, more specifically Toronto, and now a U.S. citizen. He relocated here through a corporate merger in the steel industrial to operate sales in Canada. He led marketing efforts for the company that inspired pricing policy through operational metrics and economic conditions and site selection for new steel mills throughout market expansions and freight equalization, tongue twister, sorry. For the last 20 years, Rod and his wife, Diane, operate a residential real estate agents that assist buyers and sellers in and around Olivet. He and Diane assist the Ladue School District by running Commit to Ladue, and that's the number 2, since 2010, that helped pass bond issues for new buildings totaling $250 million, as well as a school board member. He's city council commissioner, and issued campaigns. Rod's been a commissioner of the Economic Development for the Commission since 2007. And when we even did the bond for this building, you and your wife were very helpful as well. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to Olivet, we've always had your involvement, and we are grateful for that. And with the Ladue school boards, I know that I think this week is the ribbon cutting for the middle school, and in the next couple of weeks is Beatty School in Old Bonham. So we're also seeing the fruition of that $250 million project as well, which is very exciting. So can we start with you, Rod?
Sure. That was ribbon cutting is the fun part. Trying to get people out to the polls is not always that much fun. But welcome. Thanks for coming.
So I wanted to start by having you tell us about, it's a loaded question, or when we were talking, you said it's not really a question, but to give people an overview of economic development and your role.
Okay, basically what the EDC does is look at issues that come before the city, usually brought forth by staff, by Carlos and Dawn. Potentially there may be a developer or a business that wants to relocate here or redevelop some property. In a lot of cases, what they do is they come to the city and say, well, we'd like to improve the city and create this development here. What can the city do for you? So what we do is, we look at, and I forget the section of the state statutes, but, things like, tax abatement, TIF, that sort of thing. We do some number crunching with regards to that, and oftentimes this is done, because it involves, commercial aspects of real estate. We do it in closed door sessions, and we do some number crunching with regards to whether their requests make any sense. And, over the years, we've looked at a number of things, and we've seen some growth and development, really starting with maybe Shops at Price Crossing and in the late 2000s. And also with the kind of development that's going on right now, there've been a number of developments along Olive Boulevard that are starting to come to fruition. And in certain cases, we've looked at a lot of things that you don't even see, because there have been a number of proposals that have come before our commission that we basically turned down. They just don't necessarily make sense, mainly from an economic standpoint. And, that's kind of what we do. And we look at a facet of the city of basically tax base. And we try and look at basically the money or the funds that are actually required to run the city, and making sure that the tax base is equitable. It's not, everybody pays their property tax every year, et cetera. At least I hope you do. And also there's things like overlay taxes with regards to things like, telecommunications tax and utility taxes. And there may be overlay districts, and it gets very complex, overlay districts with regards to transportation districts, and there may be extra taxes on top of taxes and things like that. And what we do is we try and look at how it affects residents, how it affects businesses, and try and get a more equitable what's the word I'm looking for?
A deal.
More equitable deal, yeah.
You want a good deal.
Yeah, for businesses moving here and for the residents, so that, as the city provides more services, that they're basically taken care of and paid for. One thing that I've used in like as an example over the last 10 years, if you've been long-term residents here, you can kind of remember during the financial crisis of 2008, 2010, the city was not in dire straits, but we had to adjust some things with regards to some of the services provided. Residents used to have their trash picked up as part of their taxes, and it was made a new proposal that should be shifted over to residents. And those are certain things where it's basically now what you're paying is you're paying the portion of tax that used to be paid by the city. So you're paying it now. It's kind of like a shift in taxes over to yourself. What we're trying to do is look at expansion of certain areas of property tax, of potential sales tax, with regards to what happens and all of that, so that it goes into the coffers. So possibly we can get that back, and make sure that the growth in things like this center, the new fire station, city hall, is all paid for, and the operational costs to run that too. Is that a long answer to a short question? Or
It was perfect. Did you want to add on to that?
Well, I think it was a great answer, and I think some of the words you were looking for were chapter 100, chapter 353, transportation development district, community development district, and neighborhood improvement district. there are so many different programs that can be layered into a project. It depends on the type of project and what they bring to the table in terms of employees. I wouldn't say that, that's, and doing, calculations for the tax abatements isn't a large part of what our EDC does. But, we have been looking to connect with the business community. And, these are tenets of our comprehensive plan, the, plan that was passed, I guess, is it a couple months ago? I can't remember, in December. Where, we codified, our goals for economic development. And part of our goal of EDC is to reach out to businesses in the community and connect with them. Part of economic development is retaining, or actually a large part of economic development is retaining your current businesses and making sure that they are happy. Just like property owners, they pay their taxes, their real and personal property taxes, and they have properties that they maintain. And we want them to have a happy and prosperous business so that they can continue to maintain their properties and invest in the community.
So when you refer to, the different, like the chapters or some of these goals, I think some of the people listening might not understand what that actually means. So I know, like, you have these tenants when you talked about transportation, but can you go a little deeper into what the vision those are?
Well, there are different types of programs that are focused on the goals of that development. So if you are looking at a transportation development district, then you have some kind of mode of transportation that you are trying to capitalize on. A neighborhood improvement district would be kind of like it sounds. It is something that is more connective to the neighborhood. Community improvement district is very similar. What you can use different programs for depends on what they're bringing to the table in terms of, like, if it's a multifamily, if it's a commercial business, if it's an industrial business. You can only do certain programs in certain places. Multifamily, those are usually going to be found in the NIDS and the SIDS. And I don't want to,
Lots of acronyms to learn.
So many.
I think when I joined city council, that was one of the first things I made lists of, was all these acronyms, because there's so many. Rod, what are some of the current things that the EDC is working on?
Actually, right now, over the last probably 15 years, we've seen a lot of things come through, but we haven't had that much interest as of late. We continue to look at the development at all of N170, which is the gateway. We've actually looked at some of the apartment buildings as well. And even, depending on the type of development, sometimes we're looking for, say, for example, here's an example. Some people aren't really happy with the way that, a storage facility got placed on Olive. And it's one of those things where we can go out and basically solicit business and say we're open for business and that sort of thing. But when a business comes to us, we can't really, there are certain limitations on, legally that we can and can't do. Say, for example, if we wanted, we can go ahead and say, no tattoo parlors and all of that, or something like that, that's not necessarily applicable. But when, legitimate business that has has a right to go ahead and develop something, they come to us, and it's very difficult in certain circumstances to go ahead and say, well, that's not what we want. But what we can do is we can go to that business and say, well, we'd like you to somehow augment it so that it meets the needs of what we're requiring here. So one thing that the EDC did with regards to the storage facilities, rather than have a big box on Olive, we said, well, we'd like some facet of retail. So they had not done this before, the easy storage, which is happening. So we asked them, we worked with them and said, is it possible that we can have some storefronts there? You know, it's parking in front, have a little more retail there, so not only will we get the improvement in the building itself to increase the tax base, we will also add something of a sales tax base too. So, and that's been working out well. I believe that they're coming along with that. I believe that they have one of the bays of, I believe, 5 there, which is potentially leased out. It's not necessarily something that can be disclosed as to what type of business it is, but that's the kind of thing that we can do. So, does that sort of answer your question? with regards to- Yeah.
So we're also, working closely with the Chamber of Commerce on an exciting, undertaking. For the first time, we're doing a Restaurant and Business of the Year Awards. And before you reveal who they are, because we're gonna save that, can you tell us a little bit about the process?
Well, this was really exciting. Whenever I came on board, I found out that we participate in the Creve Coeur Olivet Chamber. And they do a business awards ceremony every year, but they have only done Creve Coeur businesses. And part of the goals part of the goals of our plans have always been to be more proactive. And our most recent plan, really called to action those, the goals that were previously set forth by I'm sorry, I'm blanking, but the 06 plan and, it's not the market analysis, it's a 5-year, and it's a 5-year plan, and I'm sorry. So getting this together, was, I don't want to say tricky, but how do you come up with a consensus on which businesses, should win an award and what award should you have? We wanted to make it simple in our first year, Restaurant of the Year Award and a Business of the Year Award. We may at some point look at expanding. I would have liked to see perhaps a Mayor's Choice Award, or something like that, but we'll see in the future. It was good to focus on the 2, and see what kind of reaction we got from our nominations. We did the nomination form through ArcGIS, which is typically a mapping program, but they have a survey 1, 2, 3 component that actually allows you to take very detailed surveys. And if you looked at the background or the back end of the survey that's online, that was online for this, it's fairly complicated, but we were able to gather data, give people 3 businesses that they could nominate, 3 restaurants. It was very interesting to see what came out. We had a lot of spikes in interest once the businesses found out that there was a nomination form. Because although we publicized it, it wasn't that we went around to the businesses and told them, hey, you can get nominated for this award. But once they did, there were businesses that their employees all voted, and that our winner of the Business of the Year Award, whenever their, I guess, clients found out about it, they really turned out in droves.
Do you want to share the story about how they turned out? Do you want Dawn to?
I think Don's doing a great job.
Okay, go for it, Dawn.
Well, nominations were trickling in, but then the winner of the business award, St. Louis Dance Academy, when they told their clients, the young dancers, the tweens, their parents definitely got on those. Or they are the most, eloquent tweens I've ever heard. But they really had a lot to say, and 57 votes within a day and a half basically, made them by far the winner of the Business of the Year award. And it was really interesting to see them just show out like that.
So it shows the social media impact for tweens, you know, getting to vote on their phones and do a survey on their phone.
We had a viral
Pretty-
sensation.
A viral sensation right within our city.
I guess I can add this. Well, it was kind of a, like a fairly quick thing that we put together because Don came and said, you know what? The chamber is doing this and we haven't been involved in this. Let's gear something up. And Don put this whole thing together with regards to the website, the voting, et cetera. And we decided to say, you know what, rather than kind of sit back and refine it, let's just do it. And get out there and see what happens and see how this goes. And it was just kind of fun to look at, you know, and read some of the comments and things like that. It actually gave us a pretty good feeling that, you know, people were out there supporting their businesses within town here, which is what our goal is. And that's really what we wanted to do. And I kind of see this, you know, growing into something a little bit bigger next year. And again, it's kind of a fun thing to do. And it's just basically, you know, the residents can speak. They can go ahead and vote for whoever they like.
So Dawn did the big reveal on the business. Would you like to share with everyone the restaurant of the year?
Yes, restaurant of the year was actually when it came to the voting, we came up with a tie. I don't know how many, we had 15 or something, or it wasn't, we didn't get a huge amount of people, but it was like, we had a tie between the Olivet Diner, which is a perennial favorite, and Fallon's Restaurant, but Fallon's Bar and Grill. And actually, we had a little discussion there with regards to, you know, why one versus the other, and it's really difficult to pick. The only my comment was, well, you know what, Olivet Diner has the name Olivet in it, so let's go with that. So that was, I guess, basically the deciding factor, and I don't expect Fallon's to change their name next year, another award. But we've basically voted and it was the Olivet Diner.
So I happened to walk into the Olivet Diner last week, right after Carlos and Dawn were up there telling them.
Okay.
And Melinda, who is one of the owners, it's owned by a family, Vincent and Melinda, and she was in tears. I mean, she was just so blown away. And in May, there's gonna be a luncheon where the owners from the diner and from St. Louis Academy of Dance will be at, and the city council members and all of that staff will be at with the chamber luncheon to celebrate them. So that will be exciting. And I think it's a wonderful tradition we're starting, and they start slow.
Yeah.
So
Oh, it was very heartening, to talk to the owner's wife and really, it wasn't just her reaction, she just had so many nice things to say. She contributed their success to being in Olivet. And it was, I don't know, it was wonderful. I hope that this is a way to bring the community closer to the businesses. I know that I am a close shopper. I like to visit things that are right near me, and with the new shops that we've had, it was very difficult for me to think about what I would nominate in the form itself. And I hope that, if you did not vote this year, that next year you will nominate your businesses.
So I know that one of the questions is, it was to talk about how to get involved. And you can, if you want to start with that, and then I will add on to that a little bit.
Okay, well, there has to be a vacancy, and if we have a vacancy, we publicize it. If there's not a vacancy, you can always begin attending meetings and get familiar with what is going on and usually there's not a very high attendance for EDC meetings. So there's a lot of chance to, opportunity to connect with us and talk about opportunities to be more connected and be more involved. Because aside from serving on the commissions, there's definitely a lot of opportunity out there.
When you have your meetings, do you usually have guest speakers, or is it more just discussion? How do your agendas usually fall out?
Actually, we have both. A lot of times, a lot of what we do is kind of driven towards what comes before the city. Usually, Don and Carlos come and say, we've got this application, or we're talking with this developer, that sort of thing. And they will make presentations to us with regards to what their development plans are. We've also had people from the region that do the same thing. People looking for I guess licensing requirements, that sort of thing. I mean, there were, in the last couple of years, we've seen there was a grow facility which was voted down. We heard from them. There was another dispensary. We heard from them. And we made recommendations to the council. Also, when the Oliver was developed, we heard from them, and we looked at some basement. That was actually kind of an interesting one, because the property that was involved in that was owned by the city. And because it was owned by the city, it was not taxed. It would be kind of silly for the city to tax itself and just sort of take money in one pocket and put it in the other. So we had to basically come up with, call in some consultants with regards to the property valuation and get some good appraisals for it, and decide on what we would sell that property for, and kind of decide on, is it something that is it market value? Is it something that we value in terms of what the development will be? And we have to sort of crunch numbers on those questions. So that was interesting to do too. So as to our meetings, we always have on our agenda, one of the first things is public comments, and notably so, we just don't get anybody out to our meetings. And it's kind of a running joke that we just sort of look around and say, does anybody have anything to say? But sometimes there's someone online, but it's a lot of people look at this as pretty dry stuff. And but we try and keep it light and kind of be welcoming to whoever wants to come and state their case and ask questions as to what's going on.
How often do you meet?
Well, we meet every month, and because things are going a little slower, we've actually talked about doing it every other month right now. And the members are actually quite busy people too. I mean, myself, we sell real estate, and my wife and I are for Berkshire Hathaway in town here, so we're always around. The other members are David Moons, who owns a business in Maryland Heights, and he's also a resident. Nate Zielinski, he works at the Federal Reserve downtown. There's Becky Jacobs, who is a former council member, and she owns an ice cream parlor in the Grove. And Spencer Talbot, who is a commercial real estate broker. So we've got people who are involved in business and also residents, and there's a mix of that with regards to what the commission is made up, so that we get a good basis of experience that we look at, and that's part and parcel of how the city council actually chooses people to be on the commission, so that it's not weighted one way or the other. There's a good balance of people who have opinions, wants, needs, experiences of different things.
And that's something I did fail to mention, that there are requirements for certain positions, so they're on our planning and community development commission, then there has to be a certified planner who is on the board, there has to be a development professional, there has to be, people who are involved in the right professions in order to have the level of expertise that we need for them to bring to their review of the different documents. It can get very technical, so we need architects. And if you know people who are architects that are willing to, spend their time, we could probably, or there will probably be a notification for applications at some point. Yeah, it does take a lot of expertise, to do the reviews that we have.
But in the meantime, until there is an opening, we encourage people to come and just sit in on some of the meetings.
Absolutely.
One of the things I'd like to tag on to what you were saying about some of the people that you gave the Oliver as an example. I thought it was brilliant when you had, the original owners of the Oliver came and did like a postmortem. They came and they shared with you what their experience was. I understand about working with Olivet and the process to give you feedback for future development.
Oh, yeah, we actually do that. Of course, you know, with various developments, we've had people come in and ask them, you know, hey, what's going on? Give us an update from them as to how is your development going? We do like better word, postmortem afterwards,
Mhm.
after it's finished, to see if their experience was good. And kind of digging into that a little bit with regards to how they asked for things and what they asked for. A good example, probably a long-term example. One of the first things we did in an awful long time in all of that was the Shops at Price Crossing. We did that, I believe, in 2007. And the developer came to us and said, listen, I've basically accumulated the properties, and if you've been long-term residents here, you remember Mama's Pizza right at the corner of Price and Olive. There were there may be 6 different properties that were fairly old rundown houses. And I would say, for lack of a better word, blighted. But the developer actually put this together, and in terms of trying to make it a profitable enterprise for himself, as well as increase the value of the taxable value of what is built there, he came and actually said, I would like to get an abatement on the taxes that, you know, for 15 years. And that was just about 15 years ago. So what we did was we worked out a schedule of how we would increase the taxes over time, how he would ramp up the tenancy and you know, the rates of rent, et cetera, which would feed into things. Developers, he was and still is a resident of Olivet, and one of the things that he said was, right now, as it is with regards to the vacant properties, dilapidated buildings, I think that they were getting like $26,000 a year in terms of the entire parcel. He said, listen, let's go, I would like to get, I would like to at least pay you at least that much. I don't want anything more than that. And I want to make sure that the city, the school district, the fire department, all the different taxing districts which overlay, which make up the taxes in your property tax are not underfunded, but I will graduate it over time. And, you know, basically work with them to increase the taxes over time, because when you do a development, there are tremendous upfront costs with regards to moving what's there, upgrading the infrastructure. There was a creek there. There were, you have to bring in power, sewer, water, all these utilities, which are also taxed as well, which actually add to the coffers of the city. But in certain circumstances, if you can't get help from the city in terms of abatement, it just may not happen. And you may end up with looking at a vacant lot for an awful long time. And case in point, again, was, where the storage facility is, I don't know how many years ago, but it used to be Hardee's.
Mhm.
And that got torn down, and then a bank bought it. Fifth Third Bank was going to go ahead and build something there, but they kind of dragged their feet, and it was kind of like, we really weren't sure what they're doing, and all of a sudden this for sale sign went up, and they wanted to sell it for something else. And we were trying to get something with regards to some retail presence, because you're on a fairly high traffic road. Which makes sense for, the kind of motor vehicle type businesses that we have and all that. So, those are a couple examples of the why and the how that we kind of do things.
So before we go to questions, is there anything that you wanted to share that I might have not asked, or are you ready for questions?
I think I'm ready for questions, but I will say that, where economic development leaves off, a well-crafted zoning, ordinance will fill that gap, and we have some well-crafted ordinances. But and they could always use improvement, because time continues on and the text stays the same. So we have to continually evolve, always.
Well, and just like we have the comprehensive plan that we just voted in, each, each of the commissions has their own master plan. So like, I'm the liaison to Parks and Rec, so they have a 10-year master plan, and I understand that EDC has a 5-year master plan. I'm not sure where you are in that cycle right now. It's time to get back on it. So I think that it's interesting because, I know with Jim Person, who's the chair of the parks, is here, and, we're getting ready to reevaluate ours, because we've by accomplishing certain things, you have to keep going back and visiting these plans. And I think that these plans, these master plans really help the commission, and then they are feeders into the comprehensive plan.
Well, they help bring things like this Business of the Year award, to life. And they probably, there wouldn't be an impetus, right? It would be more slapdash, which really want to avoid.
Very good. Thank you both. Are there any questions in the audience for either Rod or Dawn? Okay, we'll start over here with Jim.
What's the interface between economic development and PCDC? Do you communicate with each other, or do you operate over on one side, and then once it becomes a deal, then or do you consult with back and forth with PCDC?
They're staffed by the same people. So.
Right.
We don't like those people at all. No, we actually, here's one thing we really didn't say, is that we are not a decision-making board. We are an advisory board.
Yeah.
So the people who make the decisions are our city council, and they rely on us to use our expertise to come up with some sort of advice to give them. We do somewhat operate in silos, but we understand that economically, you can basically look at any issue, and this is my personal belief, and basically come down to its economic impact.
Right.
Use of land, whether it's development or residential, commercial, industrial, you can go ahead and say, you can make a case either way for it. But and that's kind of how we interface. It's kind of like we really limit ourselves to the economic impact of a development, mainly on its financial aspects of how the city is. And the PCDC actually looks at sort of the same sort of things, but they also have a different set of criteria that they're evaluating things on. There's a little bit of overlap in times. If you ever, if you're not sleeping well at night, you can go ahead and look at some of our videos where we go ahead and talk about these issues and things like that. But we do interface kind of indirectly.
What's next? And then I'll work my way across.
Number one, is Diner gonna get a plaque or something for?
Yes, sir. And there will be a luncheon, with the Greek for all that chamber. It's a pretty big award luncheon, on May 16th.
And how much developable space is left in all of it, the Olive Corridor and what, Dealman and Warson or
You know, that's a really good question. That is a really good question.
Industrial Park?
Because, you know, being on the commission as long as I have had, there are really about 6 to 8 parcels that are really developable, and a number of them have become. And actually, there were a couple, take, for example, the apartment building that's slated to go in behind the CBS. You know, we looked at that, as it came before us, you know, that was, they took out some homes. And it was actually the developer who went ahead and made deals with everybody, and everybody was quite happy. And they wanted to make sure from a PCDC standpoint, could we do this? Yes. From an economic standpoint, for whatever they asked for was reasonable. So that was yes too. But realistically, I mean, we just went through our master plan with regards to, you know, how things can change. I think that it wasn't really weighted a lot on individual parcels as to what we're gonna do about this, what we're gonna do about that. It was more along the sounding board of, this is a direction we wanna go. And, there's, as to what happens with these parcels, it does get put out to the open market. And, we've actually put a brochure together, and we've refined it over time, and we need to look at it again with regards to, you know, demographic information, what all of that is made up of, you know, some of our history over development, and trying to get the right people that would be palatable for the residents here to have, for the kind of amenities that people want. But the open market is the thing that really drives what is going to happen with those parcels.
If I could weigh in, that we are currently doing our business license renewal mailing, and that gives us a sense of the inventory of businesses within our industrial park, so that we are aware if there are any vacancies. There are not. Currently, no. The big chunks of space. There is one parcel of over 7 acres that has building potential. There are issues with utilities to the site, but as Rob mentioned, the private market, it moves moves things along.
Okay, and I'll call on our favorite alumni.
Yeah, with what's going on in Creek Cove, with the old Monsanto area. I imagine that's, I think of you when because there's been a lot in the paper about what they have to do and all that. Is there anything in there that you found specifically interesting, or things you don't have to deal with, or?
Let's say what,
how it affect our-
I'm gonna answer that in a slightly different way, because St. Louis itself as a community and the county is kind of an anomaly in the United States,
Mhm.
because we're a patchwork of small little cities, et cetera. And it's like, the example that so many people use from years and years and years ago was like, the battle or the issue between Clayton and University City when they wanted to put a Famous Bar in. And Famous Bar wanted to go ahead and they wanted to put it in University City. And University City said, well, listen, we really don't want the development. We're gonna be a bedroom community here. So Famous Bar went to Clayton, said, would you like this? And they said, yes, we'd like this, we'd like that, because not only are they going to get the improvements to the infrastructure, the new building, which is going to raise their property tax, they would also get the sales tax. So unbeknownst to, well, I guess they figured it out. Clayton got that benefit, and they got all that benefit, and University City got a parking lot. So they ended up with some of the detrimental effects of the development without any of the benefits. Now, I don't know if it gets into some complicated issues with regards to whether you're a point of sale city or a pool city, and I think University City is a pool city, which basically means that sales taxes, that sort of thing, gets put into a pool and it gets divided by all the members, but you can opt out of it or opt into it. And I know that Olivet is a point of sale city. So anything that gets sold here basically stays here in terms of its taxability. So I don't, I kind of answered your question a little bit different. Now, when it comes to Creve Coeur, that's right on the edge of Olivet. I don't think that it's gonna have many detrimental effects. The thing about traffic always comes up, et cetera, but I think, we probably have enough infrastructure that would handle that sort of thing. It's going to be another destination which is gonna be close to us with regards to having more amenities, so I think that's gonna be a positive.
Any of the problems that the commission had there, that you're glad you don't have to deal with? I mean, some of that stuff, they start going into with the roads and all the infrastructure they have to put in there. Is that Creve Coeur that has to put that in there, or do they end up charging that to the, I mean, how does all that?
Actually, when it comes to, and this is really a bigger issue than just the EDC, it's really a city issue. Because with it, even within all of that, there are private streets and there are public streets. There's the neighborhood improvement district, the NID, that happened in the late 90s, where the private streets got turned over to the city, and so it can be a patchwork of things. However they choose to put it through, there's a number of different ways that they could do it.
I would think that the roads belong to the developer. I mean, that's an assumption. But if the city of Creve Coeur owned the roads, then they would have some owners, they would have some, jurisdiction there. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, we have the same problems with our larger developments. There had to be roads vacated at Irvington and Rhyme. There were roads that didn't exist and now will exist again with the development at 170. Hilltop will now, go past or go south of Olive again. So it changes over time, and I would say that we deal with the same exact things, just in a different flavor.
And even, with regards to that too, when you look at a development with regards to being taken on by a developer, a case in point is going to be the Gateway project, where the apartments and the hotels going in, et cetera. And Greg Yowitz is looking at that. He had to do a tremendous amount of infrastructure improvements to get that off the ground. It took a long time. There were high voltage lines going across the property. He buried those. There's a creek going under there. He had to take care of that. There was water retention that was required by MSD. There was, and actually in the 1950s, 60s, that area was used to creosote telephone poles. And there were some environmental concerns which had to be cleaned up too. And these are all benefits. When he does that sort of stuff, or a developer does that, they're all benefits, because he's cleaning things up and improving infrastructure for the city. So that's
Anyway,
kind
the
of,
city
that's
can't
kind of,
afford to
yeah,
blind them.
it's kind of, that's kind of the trade-off between bringing developers in and giving them incentives to come in.
Working with the developers tends
Right.
to get more out for the community itself.
So we have time for two more questions, so we're gonna do it, Mr. Newell, and then I believe
my question
Leslie has
is,
a question.
You mentioned when you consider tax income from property development, and you consider tax abatements for 10 years, 15 years, whatever, your projections for possible income from that development, does it go to the time limit of the tax abatement, or do you go farther than that? What is the time frame to your economic projection?
Oh, actually, what we do normally is we look at the abatement. We look at the abatement time frame. Because after the fact, after that, there'll be, after the abatement's done, after the case is closed, after the agreement is complete. It basically becomes a regularly taxed district. So,
There's an unwinding process, like it's, when you look at it financially, you can model that information out years, into the future. However, the, number of affecting variables that you cannot control multiply exponentially over the years. And when you look at like a 20-year, type of a thing, even 10 years, there's so much that happens, and after you can make certain assumptions about the unwinding, the returning of the tax base, capturing the taxes that are generated. You get a sense over that time of what that is, and then you have to get that sense before you can start modeling into the future about what is to come. Because you don't really know ahead of time what kind of sales they're going to generate.
So Patrick, your timing's perfect.
I
Oh,
have
oh,
one,
I'm sorry, go on, Mr.
I have
Newell.
one other question.
And
Well, let Patrick.
County, I mean, the seniors tax, property tax freeze, what effect do you think that's gonna have on all of it?
that's a good question.
It's a good question, but,
We've got a lot of seniors living in this town.
I tell you what, I might be able to answer this. Yeah, well, I'll tell you what, from like, I saw residential, residential houses and things like that. And I think that, the value of property and all of that has increased tremendously over the last 25 years. And along with that, I've worked a lot with the school districts and trying to understand, what they need in terms of, their budgets, et cetera, because they're the largest taxing district in the area, larger than the city. But, kind of lost my train of thought here, but, what's that? No, that's, just,
the seniors.
with this, with seniors. I support the idea behind, senior citizens being able to age in place. And to be able to have, like incentives to fix their property up, to make it more conducive to aging in place, that sort of thing. And a lot of people, are on fixed incomes, and, I know that my he's aged too, and, he's actually doing fine, but, I understand a lot of the pressures that are put on because of the increase in property taxes that are basically, automatic. However, I think that in a lot of cases, there are people in necessary, maybe in the higher end, which may be able to afford the increases even in their later years. I think that there should be some sort of an equity, something more equitable with regards to who's being, frozen and who's not.
But I guess the real reason I'm asking is that if you have that projection and it's a significant amount, is it gonna affect the decisions to give tax abatement for future development?
Yes.
It could, it
I
could.
don't mean to put you on the spot.
Yes,
I've been
absolutely.
around a few years, and I've seen things happen.
No, the current tax base, is an absolute, consideration for future tax abatements that could be offered.
Yeah, we actually work with, Darren Mann, who's the, financial director of the city with regards to, he's come in a number of times when we have these questions before us with abatement and things like that. We want to bounce it off of him to say, does this make sense long-term? Does it make sense short-term? And he'll run some projections. We'll look at it. We also bring consultants into with regards to, what they see happening demographically or, you know, in the future and, you know, what sort of trends may be happening.
I mean, I've seen yesterday, pretty cool, approved, tax abatement for the Bear property, Monsanto property. And to do that redevelopment, there's a lot of concern about that. Traffic light, demographic.
Sure, and actually, you know, you look at the Costco development on the other side, there was a tremendous amount of TIF money, et cetera. And actually what they did, they fashioned it in a way that it was, it's supposed to give back to the community which is being affected there. You know, and the commissions, the cities, et cetera, they have some leeway with regards to how they set these deals up to make sure that these things are covered. I would say that not knowing exactly what went on in Creve Coeur, the standard protocol is to go ahead and look at the costs and benefits of everything and say, is this gonna be good for people or not?
Well, they have an effect.
Sure,
So we
and
have,
some people may be more affected than others.
so we have one more question. It's from Leslie Ricard, who's online, and I believe, oh, there is not anymore?
She had her hand.
See if we start.
Oh,
Oh, I thought she had put her hand, no, she has a question.
she has a question. She's raising her hand.
Raise your hand,
Okay.
okay, and then what do I?
Okay. Let's see if we can do this. Leslie, hold on, here comes.
Leslie, you have to unmute yourself.
Gotcha. Am I okay now? Got it.
Yes.
Sorry, I couldn't be there in person. I know that you're trying to wrap this up, so I'll be brief. I had a question back to when you were discussing about the apartments behind CVS. And I'm curious about the number of apartment complexes that are being developed. And I understand from earlier in the conversation that you're limited in when developers come to you, but how do you appraise how many apartment units are, available and the number of tenants that are, the percentage of what's being leased already, and balancing that with what would be more mid-price single-family homes, because it's seeming as though there are an increasing number of apartments and million-dollar houses on both ends of the spectrum. So I was curious because it then limits the ability, and I know you don't have a say in who's selling a house and going to developers, but it just seems as though there are so many apartment buildings being built in Olivet in addition to the pre-existing ones, all through the city. Does that make any sense? Does that question make any sense?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Actually, I'll give you a little bit of history. Being in real estate for quite a number of years, we have in our brokerage, we have Tuesday meetings. And oftentimes we'll have speakers come in, and we had, being on EDC here gives me a little bit of insight here. I had one time, probably in about 2013, 14, 15, we had people in Clayton come through, the people in Brentwood come through, the people in Creve Coeur come through, and they basically gave us some ideas of their master plans. And, as a realtor, we had a certain perspective on this, but it's nice to know what's going on in all these cities. The economic development people and directors, the cities came in and they said, take for example, Clayton at that time, They had at that time, this is before, if you know where the Barton is on Maryland, or Ladue Road. That was being built at that time. And he said, I do remember this saying, there were like 2,500 apartments being built in Clayton. And what floored me was, the consultants actually came ahead and they said, and we believe that Clayton can absorb another 5,000 units.
Exactly, it's, yeah,
And the thing is, what we also talked about was, okay, what's your square foot price? And we started doing some math, et cetera, and that sort of thing, and we said, wow, I can go ahead and sell someone, and this is a few years ago, I can go ahead and sell someone at today's interest rates, a $400,000 single family house, a ranch home, which there are many of at that time and all that, for less with a mortgage payment than you're charging in rent. How do you see this happening? And they said, demographically, we see a shift in people moving to apartments.
Hmm.
But the thing is, my point in bringing this up is that it has really come to pass.
Hmm.
And there have been a number of developments in a ring around, all of that here, that, apartments are becoming very popular. Now, I also look at this too from a standpoint of longevity. If you've been around long enough, the last time there were a lot of apartments built were basically built in the outer suburbs, the Chesterfields, the Maryland Heights, in the 1980s, maybe the 1990s. But since that time, there really wasn't much being built at all. So there was a deficit from the consultant standpoint for a number of years, which nothing was getting built. So it was sort of a catch-up time. And, with regards to the lady's question here, I, from what I've heard from the market in terms of more units being built, we're probably leading towards saturation at this point. And this, I don't necessarily speak specifically the area, more in terms of regional or national level.
yeah, it's, from my perspective, it's largely, guided by the private market. About 5 years ago, development of SIOR, it was just all about finding those multifamily opportunities. And I would say that what was planned then has come to fruition, and is still coming to fruition now. The lease rates are I guess you could say vacancy rates for the apartment buildings are very low. Or of the new apartments. Our old apartment buildings, do have higher, vacancy some at times, because they are older units and people don't necessarily want the older units. But those units, whether they're just less desirable or eventually will be completely outmoded and need to be torn down, you could see this as the next iteration of that housing type.
No, that's,
So-
yeah, and then the other aspect of that was about the tax base difference, so that when you're putting in all the apartments, how does that impact Olivet's tax base and for Ladue School District?
I would say that Ladue School District, according to their plan, that they have seen the writing on the wall, and they know, or they have planned with the new buildings, 5 new buildings that they've built, for capacity. They don't see it as a shocker or cause for concern, according to what we've been told by the school district.
I would say, I've been personally very involved with the school district and their finances. And I know a lot of the directors. I've been involved with regards to passing the bond issues, et cetera. They had an initial concern about all the apartments, but after they have been built and after a postmortem, they're finding that the types of people who are moving into these apartments are not necessarily families. You've got a fairly low number well beyond their targets of the impact of extra kids going to the school districts.
Great, thanks. I appreciate you taking the time to answer.
Thank you, Leslie. Mr. Newell, are you okay speaking offline with Rod afterwards, or is it a quick question? Mr. Newell,
Well,
can you speak with
sure.
over coffee? Okay, great, because we need to wrap up, and I want to thank everyone for coming. Be on the lookout for the new Olivet Spring and Summer Parks and Rec catalog. It's at the printer, and you'll all be getting them in the mail this time, which is exciting. This afternoon from 4 to 7 here is the Energy Assistance Program application sign-up time. Tremendous is tomorrow here for 7 p.m. And it's in collaboration with the Olivet Sustainability Advocates, Olivet in Bloom, Forest Relief, and Plant Shade. Join us for a new and collaborative event. It's called Tremendous in Olivet. We've got a lot of announcements. We also, it is a workshop and a tree sapling sale that includes the educational evening with experts from the places that I just mentioned. And if you order a native tree sampling, it's a $5 donation per sapling. And you can visit the olivetsustainability.com for more details. We have a pickleball mixer on Friday night. Olivet in Bloom has their kickoff breakfast this Saturday, at 8 a.m. And then they will be heading out for their first morning of volunteer work. Olivet citywide yard sale is on the 13th and 14th from 8 to 2. We have a star party in the park on Sunday evening from 7:30 to 9 at Stacy. Large bulk collection, I know everyone's interested in that, begins on Monday, April 22nd. And that goes all week through the 26th. Design a small native garden with Olivet and Bloom is happening on April, did I say August? I meant April, is April 26th. And then the next morning will be followed by the Olivet in Bloom plant sale. And that Saturday is also going to be the National Prescription Drug Take Back. We have Party in the Park coming up on May 4th and the Bullathon on May 10th. And if you want to make a team for Elaine, you can go online to do that as well. My recommendation, because I don't think you're going to remember all those dates as you walk out of here, my biggest recommendation is to go to our website and sign up for our Monday. Every Monday, they give an overview of what's happening this week in Olivet. And it's a very thorough email, and it's very helpful to keep your calendars up to date with all that's happening. I want to thank Rod Pattershuk and Dawn Doty for joining us this morning, and thank all of you for coming. So have a great day. Thank you.